Welcome to This Explainer. When we usually think of environmental pollution, our minds instantly jump to smog-filled skies or maybe chemical spills in a river. But today, well, we are going to dive into a shifting landscape. We're moving from the dirt right beneath our feet all the way to the devices sitting in our hands right now. We're going to explore how our everyday modern life impacts the physical world and how the tech we rely on every single day is literally creating an entirely new environmental frontier.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. 1. Earth, sound, and radiation. 2. The e-waste epidemic. 3. Toxins in your tech. 4. Managing the mess. And finally, 5. A billion-dollar opportunity. Section 1. Earth, sound, and radiation. The familiar and invisible threats around us.
So let's start with soil, the absolutely essential thin layer of materials covering the Earth's rocky surface. Now, a lot of soil pollution comes from massive industrial sources, heavy fertilizer use, or even acid rain. But fighting it, that actually starts right at home with 4 simple steps: refuse, reuse, recycle, and reduce. It's about refusing unnecessary new containers and using what you already have. It's about taking those empty soft drink cans and reusing them as pencil stands, recycling by properly segregating your waste, and reducing your footprint by just bringing your own cloth bags to the market. These are small, structured changes, but they literally prevent toxic buildup in the earth.
And then there's noise. We live in a super loud world, right? Garbage trucks, leaf blowers, crazy road traffic. Now, sound is measured in decibels, and what's wild is that just a 10 decibel increase actually doubles the loudness. The World Health Organization recommends we strive for a peaceful 30 decibels indoors, but prolonged exposure to just 75 decibels, that can permanently damage your hearing. This is exactly why we have strict silence zones within 100 meters of hospitals, courts, and schools. All right, moving on to the truly invisible threats, radioactive pollution. This involves atomic particles that need vastly different physical barriers to stop them from wrecking human cells. Alpha particles, they're relatively weak. You can block them with a simple piece of paper or just your skin. Beta particles can penetrate the skin, but they'll be stopped by glass or metal. But gamma rays, wow, they're highly penetrating ionizing radiation that can literally break apart human macromolecules. Stopping those requires a massive, thick piece of solid concrete.
So what is the absolute most crucial thing to understand when we talk about these nuclear materials? Whether they're natural radium in the Earth's crust or man-made stuff from power plants, it's their half-life. Every single radioactive nuclide has a constant decay rate. The half-life dictates exactly how long it takes for half of its atoms to decay, and that tells us exactly how long these materials are going to remain an active threat to our environment.
Section 2. The e-waste epidemic. The digital dump.
E-waste isn't just that old, dusty computer sitting in your basement. It's a massive generic term for every discarded mobile phone, sensor, audio product, and home appliance we toss out. Now, to be fair, e-waste itself isn't intrinsically dangerous if it's stocked safely or recycled properly by the formal sector. But the real crisis emerges, and the waste becomes incredibly hazardous when these super intricate devices are ripped apart using primitive, unregulated recycling methods.
Section 3. Toxins in your tech. What's hiding inside?
Get this. There's a shocking reality hiding right inside our devices. Nearly a quarter, 22%, of the world's yearly mercury consumption goes straight into electrical and electronic equipment. We're talking thermostats, sensors, relays, flat panel displays. And why does this matter? Well, when inorganic mercury leaches into our water supply, it transforms into methylated mercury. It bioaccumulates in fish and concentrates all the way up the food chain. Exposure to that can cause devastating damage to the human brain and kidneys, and it's especially dangerous for a developing fetus.
And it's not just mercury. The devices you use every single day contain a whole cocktail of heavy metals. Lead, which is found in printed circuit boards and those chunky old CRT monitors, severely impedes childhood brain development and wrecks the central nervous system. Cadmium, hiding in chip resistors, accumulates directly in human kidneys. Beryllium, used to strengthen motherboard connectors, it can actually cause lung cancer and poor wound healing years after exposure. We aren't just tossing away harmless plastic here, we're discarding highly potent bioaccumulative toxins.
Section 4. Managing the mess. India's e-waste crisis and response.
1.6 million, Let that sink in for a second. That staggering number represents the tons of e-waste generated in India just between 2021 and 2022. India is actually the third largest generator of e-waste globally right now, sitting right behind China and the US. And what's even more fascinating is how concentrated this waste is. Just 65 cities in India generate over 60% of that total volume. It is an incredibly dense urban pollution crisis.
So how do you even fight a surge like that? Well, the Indian government has been continuously evolving its rulebook over the last 15 years. They kicked things off in 2008 by putting electronics under general hazardous waste rules. Fast forward to 2016, and they started explicitly including specific products like mercury-containing lamps. Then in 2022, they made this massive push to digitize the entire e-waste management process for better tracking, and they strictly restricted the use of hazardous stuff like lead and cadmium in the manufacturing process itself. But the absolute backbone of all these modern regulations, it's called Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR. This is a brilliant concept of product stewardship because it entirely shifts the burden. It forces the producers and manufacturers who actually make our electronics to take direct ownership of how those products are ultimately disposed of. Basically, if you make the tech, you own the responsibility for its safe recycling. But let's be real, top-down regulation isn't always enough. We need truly innovative, systemic solutions. To effectively reduce and recycle, we're seeing strategies like tax credits that actually reward manufacturers for designing easily repairable products, hitting back against planned obsolescence. Imagine walking up to an e-waste ATM in a public space, dropping in an old phone, and getting vouchers for public transit. Or using blockchain technology to create a digital certificate that perfectly tracks a device from creation to disposal. There are even huge public art installations made from discarded circuit boards designed to visually shock people into awareness.
Section 5. A billion-dollar opportunity, from trash to treasure.
Okay, here is where things get really fascinating. According to a comprehensive report by the Indian Cellular and Electronics Association, the e-waste landscape in India is currently driven by a fiercely competitive informal sector. These folks handle 90% of the collection and 70% of the recycling. These informal workers are incredibly efficient at salvaging older devices for spare parts and doing profitable repairs. In industrial hubs like Moradabad, they specialize in processing printed circuit boards to extract highly valuable precious metals. We're talking gold and silver. The wealth is literally right there in the waste.
$7 billion. Yup, you heard that right. The report highlights that if we rethink our e-waste management, formalize these collection centers, and truly harness this potential, this transformation into a circular economy could unlock an additional $7 billion market opportunity. It is an absolute goldmine currently just sitting in our desk drawers and local landfills.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought. Every piece of tech you own right now is already a future pollutant. The choices we make today, whether that's us as consumers demanding repairable products or society's formalizing recycling, those choices will decide our future. Will your next phone end up leaking lead and cadmium into our soil? Or will it be seamlessly tracked, recycled, and used to fund a multi-billion-dollar green economy? The choice is entirely in our hands. Thanks for learning with me today.